When Alex first mentioned the trip to Hawaii, I was thrilled. It was supposed to be a perfect getaway. Sun, beaches, cocktails, and a break from the daily grind. Alex, me, and his group of friends, most of whom I got along with, had been planning this for months. The excitement was building as we discussed flight tickets, hotels, and all the places we wanted to explore together. The group included Lucas, a loud but fun guy who always had some crazy story to tell, his girlfriend Emily, who was sweet but a little too obsessed with Instagram, and then there was Jenna. Jenna had been Alex's friend for years, but I had never really warmed up to her. Something about the way she acted around Alex always rubbed me the wrong way. She was overly familiar, always touching his arm when she left, always the first to comment on his social media posts. But I trusted Alex. At least I thought I did. Then, a week before the trip, Lucas suddenly dropped out. Something about work obligations he couldn't get out of. It was disappointing, but we all figured it wasn't a big deal, until Jenna spoke up. "If Lucas isn't coming, I don't want to go either," she announced, her arms crossed tightly. I frowned. "Why not?" Jenna gave me a sideways glance before quickly looking at Alex. "I just don't think the trip would be the same, you know? The vibe would be off." I waited for Alex to say something, to remind her that the rest of us were still going and that it would still be fun. Instead, he hesitated. I saw something flicker across his face. Uncertainty, or maybe guilt. "We should talk about this," he muttered to Jenna, avoiding my gaze. That was the first sign that something was wrong. But I ignored it. I didn't want to be the jealous girlfriend. I trusted Alex. A day later, Alex started acting weird. He wasn't as excited about the trip anymore, brushing off conversations about our itinerary. When I asked him if he had packed yet, he just shrugged. Then, one evening, he dropped the bombshell. "Hey, so, change of plans," he said, rubbing the back of his neck. "Jenna and I are going to Costa Rica instead." I laughed, thinking it was some kind of joke. "What?" He sighed. She didn't want to go to Hawaii without Lucas, and I figured Costa Rica sounded fun too, so we switched plans. I stared at him, waiting for him to say something else, anything that would make this make sense. "You switched plans?" Without even talking to me. "It just kind of happened," he said, avoiding eye contact. I felt like the floor had been ripped out from under me. "So you're ditching me?" "No. Not ditching you," he said quickly. Jenna really wanted to go somewhere, and Hawaii wasn't going to be the same without the whole group. Costa Rica seemed like a good alternative. I wanted to scream. "So instead of going on the trip we planned together, you're running off with Jenna?" His silence was answer enough. I felt humiliated, angry, hurt. My boyfriend had changed our entire vacation without even asking me, choosing to go off with another woman instead. I wanted to yell to demand an explanation, but I knew it wouldn't change anything. Instead, I turned on my heel, grabbed my bag and walked out. But I wasn't done yet. I didn't speak to Alex for days after he told me he was going to Costa Rica with Jenna. I ignored his calls, his texts, and every pathetic attempt he made to justify what he'd done. I couldn't even wrap my head around it. How do you just abandon your girlfriend for a different trip with another woman? Worse, he didn't even seem to understand why I was so upset. But then, a week after his return, he showed up at my apartment unannounced. "I messed up," he said the moment I opened the door. He looked awful, tired, like he hadn't been sleeping, and there was something desperate in his expression. "Can we please talk?" I wanted to slam the door in his face. Instead, I folded my arms. "You ditched me for another trip with another woman, Alex. What could you possibly have to say that makes that okay?" His jaw tightened. "I know. And I know I should have talked to you about it first. I was an idiot. But that's why I want to fix things." He sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I planned a trip. Just us. To Copenhagen." I blinked. "What?" "Look, I know you don't like Jenna. And maybe that's partly my fault. I never really gave you a chance to get to know her. But I want to fix that. She and her boyfriend, Travis, are coming too. This way, you can actually meet her properly." I almost laughed at the absurdity of it. After everything, his grand solution was a double-date vacation? No, Alex. The problem isn't that I don't know Jenna. The problem is that you prioritized her over me. He winced. "I know. But can you give me one chance to make it right? Please." I should have said no. Every instinct told me this was a bad idea. But a small, stupid part of me wanted to believe he really was trying. That maybe, just maybe, this trip would make things better. So, against my better judgment, I agreed. Copenhagen was beautiful. I won't pretend otherwise. The cobbled streets, the colorful buildings lining Nyhavn, the smell of fresh pastries from the bakeries. It was the kind of place I would have loved under different circumstances. But from the moment we met Jenna and Travis, the whole thing felt off. Jenna barely looked at me when Alex introduced us, just gave a quick, uninterested hey before turning back to her phone. She was dressed in a sleek, all-black outfit, the kind of effortlessly stylish look that made me feel underdressed in my sweater and jeans. Travis, on the other hand, was polite. Too polite. He shook my hand, smiled, and made small talk, but there was something guarded about him. Something tense. It didn't take long to see why. That night, we went to a restaurant Alex had picked out, a cozy, candlelit place with a menu full of things I couldn't pronounce. The four of us sat at a table near the window, the atmosphere almost romantic. Or at least, it would have been if Jenna and Travis hadn't been acting so weird. Jenna barely acknowledged Travis, spending most of the meal whispering to Alex, laughing at things only the two of them seemed to find funny. Travis, meanwhile, kept checking his phone, his expression unreadable. At one point, I decided to try and engage. So, Travis, how long have you and Jenna been together? Travis looked up, startled, like he hadn't expected anyone to address him directly. 2 years. Jenna scoffed. More like 1.5. Travis shot her a look. Right. 1.5. The tension between them was palpable. Later that evening, when Alex went to the bar to grab drinks, I took a deep breath and turned to Jenna. So, Alex tells me you've been friends for a long time. Jenna smirked. Yeah. Since college. I waited for her to say something else. Maybe something reassuring, something that would make me feel less like an outsider. But instead, she just sipped her wine, eyes flicking toward Alex as he stood at the bar. You don't like me, do you? I blurted before I could stop myself. She didn't even look surprised. I just don't get why Alex is trying so hard to make us friends. Because I'm his girlfriend? Jenna's lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. For now. My stomach turned. Excuse me. Before she could answer, Alex returned with the drinks, completely oblivious to the tension. But I didn't forget her words. And from the way Travis clenched his jaw, I knew he hadn't either. Over the next few days, things only got weirder. Jenna and Alex were always off in their own little world, reminiscing about old times, making inside jokes. Travis seemed more and more detached, his patience clearly wearing thin. Then, on our last night in Copenhagen, everything exploded. We were at a rooftop bar, the city lights stretching out beneath us. I was sipping my cocktail, trying to ignore the way Jenna kept leaning into Alex, when suddenly, Travis slammed his drink down. You know what? I'm done. Everyone turned to stare at him. Travis stood up, his expression tight with anger. Jenna, do you even realize you have a boyfriend? Or is Alex filling that role now? The table went silent. Jenna blinked, then scoffed. Oh, don't be dramatic. Dramatic. Travis let out a humorless laugh. You've spent this entire trip hanging off another guy, ignoring me completely. You didn't even notice when I left dinner early last night. Or when I didn't come back to the hotel. I froze. Wait. What? Jenna rolled her eyes. Oh my god, Travis, you're so insecure. Insecure. He shook his head. No. I'm just tired of pretending this relationship exists. Because clearly it doesn't. Jenna didn't even look upset. She just crossed her arms. So what? You're breaking up with me. Yeah, Travis said, his voice sharp. I am. For the first time all trip, Jenna actually looked stunned. Alex finally spoke up. Travis, man, let's not. No, Alex, Travis interrupted, turning to him. You need to hear this too. Because I don't know if you realize it, but you're next. I felt my heart stop. Travis looked me dead in the eye. You think this is just a trip? It's not. Jenna is trying to get Alex to herself. And he's too blind to see it. The air around us felt thick, suffocating. Alex opened his mouth, but no words came out. Jenna's face was unreadable, but I saw the slightest flicker of something. Annoyance? Guilt? I stood up. I'm done too. Alex turned to me, his face pale. Wait. But I was already walking away. And for the first time since this whole mess started, I finally felt like I was making the right decision. I left Alex standing at the rooftop bar in Copenhagen, Travis's words still ringing in my ears. You think this is just a trip? It's not. Jenna is trying to get Alex to herself. And he's too blind to see it. I didn't care where Jenna went after that, and I didn't care what Alex did either. I just needed to be alone. By the time I got back to our hotel room, my hands were shaking with frustration. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at my phone, expecting Alex to call or text me, to chase after me, to say something that would make me believe he still cared. But nothing came. I didn't sleep that night. I kept replaying the entire trip in my head, every little moment where Alex had chosen Jenna over me, every time he had laughed at something she said while ignoring me completely. I had wanted to believe he was just oblivious, but maybe he wasn't. Maybe deep down, he knew exactly what he was doing. The next morning, he finally knocked on my door. I opened it just enough to see him, but I didn't step aside to let him in. His face was a mess, tired, unshaven, dark circles under his eyes. Can we talk? I crossed my arms. What's there to talk about? He sighed. Last night was a disaster. I know that. But I need you to understand. I never meant to hurt you. I swear. I stared at him, searching for some sign that he actually meant it. You chose her, Alex. I didn't choose her, he said quickly. God, I don't know what I was thinking. I was just trying to keep the peace. I let out a bitter laugh. By ignoring me the entire trip? His shoulders slumped. I screwed up. And I hate that I made you feel like you weren't important. There was a beat of silence between us, thick with things unsaid. Then prove it, I said finally. His eyes snapped up to meet mine. What do you mean? Prove that I matter to you. That this relationship matters to you. Because right now, it doesn't feel like it. I could tell he wanted to promise me the world, to say something grand and sweeping that would make everything okay. But instead, he just nodded. I will. And like an idiot, I let myself believe him. For a few weeks after we got back home, Alex really did try. He was more attentive, more present, always checking in on me and making an effort to include me in his plans. He texted me good morning, good night, and called just to chat. He even suggested a weekend getaway, just the two of us. For a brief moment, I thought maybe things would be okay. But then Jenna called. I saw the shift in his face immediately, the way his grip tightened on his phone, the way his shoulders tensed. I was sitting on his couch, scrolling through my own phone, and I watched as he debated whether or not to answer. He answered. Hey, he said, his voice instantly lighter. I couldn't hear her side of the conversation, but I saw the way his expression changed, like nothing else in the world mattered except whatever she was saying. A pit formed in my stomach. After a few minutes, he hung up and turned to me, rubbing his jaw. So, Jenna wants to take another trip. I felt my body go rigid. What? She's been feeling kind of off since everything with Travis, so she wants to get away for a while. Clear her head. I set my phone down. And Alex hesitated. And she invited me. I stared at him, waiting for him to laugh, to say he had immediately shut the idea down. But he didn't. I swallowed hard. You just told me you were going to prove that I mattered to you. His expression twisted. It's not about that. She's my friend, and she needs support right now. And what about me? My voice cracked. What about how I feel? He exhaled slowly, running a hand through his hair. I don't want to fight. No, you don't want me to be upset. But you still want to go. He didn't say anything. I shook my head, feeling like the biggest idiot on the planet. Wow. You really haven't learned a damn thing, have you? Babe. Don't. I stood up, grabbing my bag. If you go on this trip, we're done. He looked genuinely panicked. It's not like that. I swear. She's going through a rough time, and I don't want to abandon her. She wasn't abandoned, I snapped. She treated Travis like garbage, and he finally had enough. That's not abandonment. That's consequences. He flinched but didn't argue. I took a deep breath. So what's it gonna be, Alex? He hesitated. And that hesitation was all the answer I needed. The morning of his flight, I went to the airport with him. Not because I wanted to support him, but because I needed to see it with my own eyes, to watch him choose her over me, to make sure I never forgot this moment. Jenna was already there when we arrived, wearing an expensive-looking beige travel set, her blonde hair pulled into a sleek ponytail. She was scrolling through her phone, barely acknowledging me as we approached. I watched as Alex checked in, handing his passport over to the airline worker. I watched as he stood beside Jenna, the two of them murmuring to each other, already locked in their own little world. I had spent so much time trying to convince myself that I was overreacting, that maybe this was just a bad situation, not a reflection of Alex's real feelings. But standing there, watching them together, I finally saw it clearly. He had never not chosen her. I wasn't part of his world. I was just an inconvenience, a background character in his and Jenna's story, and I was done being in it. He turned back to me, shifting awkwardly. So, I'll call you when I land. I smiled, but it wasn't a happy smile. Don't bother. His brow furrowed. Wait, what? I tilted my head, taking in the sight of him, this man I had loved, trusted, given my heart to, and I felt nothing. I hope she was worth it, I said simply. Then I turned and walked away, leaving him standing there, completely stunned. For the first time in a long time, I felt free. The moment I walked out of that airport, I knew I was done. Not just emotionally, not just in some abstract, symbolic way. I was really done. I didn't want to argue anymore. I didn't want to wait for Alex to change. I didn't want to keep pretending that I was okay with being second place in my own relationship. By the time I got home, I had already made up my mind. I was going to erase him from my life, piece by piece. I started with his things. Alex had left a lot of stuff at my apartment. Clothes, books, his electric razor, a bottle of cologne I had bought him last Christmas that he barely used. His sneakers were by the door, his jacket hung in my closet, his laptop charger plugged into the wall. It was as if he still lived here. As if nothing had changed. I refused to let that be the case. I grabbed a suitcase from the closet and started tossing everything inside. His t-shirts, his hoodies, the stupid socks he always lost but somehow never noticed when I found them. I moved through my apartment with purpose, yanking his belongings from every corner they had settled into, refusing to let myself hesitate. But the hardest part was the drawer. The one in my nightstand, filled with the little things that had meant something once. The movie ticket stub from our first date, the bracelet he had won for me at a carnival, the Polaroid of us from last summer, grinning like idiots with our faces smeared in ice cream. For a moment, I just stood there, staring down at them. I had spent so much time convincing myself that he loved me, that no matter how much he hurt me, he didn't mean to. That it was all just a misunderstanding, a temporary lapse in judgment. But that wasn't true. If he had really loved me, he wouldn't have made me feel like this. I grabbed the drawer, dumped the entire thing into the suitcase, and zipped it shut. I wasn't keeping anything. The next problem was where to put his things. I didn't want to keep them in my apartment for even a second longer. But I also wasn't about to drag a suitcase all the way to his place, only to have to deal with his roommates. Then I had an idea. Mrs. Patel, my next-door neighbor, was an older woman who spent most of her time gardening or baking. She had always been fond of Alex, though she had also once told me in a hushed whisper that she thought he was too charming for his own good. I knocked on her door, and when she opened it, I gestured to the suitcase. Hey, Mrs. Patel. I have a huge favor to ask. Her eyebrows lifted. That doesn't look like a favor, dear. That looks like a breakup. I sighed. It is. She studied me for a moment, then nodded. Come in. I stepped inside, setting the suitcase down by her couch. The smell of fresh bread filled the air, and I suddenly realized how exhausted I was. She poured me a cup of tea without asking, sitting across from me as I wrapped my hands around the warm mug. You want to talk about it? I let out a small laugh. Not really. She nodded knowingly. Men can be foolish creatures. I smiled. That's an understatement. She patted my hand. Don't worry, dear. I'll make sure he gets his things. And if he gives me any trouble, I'll just tell him I threw them away. I grinned, imagining Alex's horrified expression. Thank you, Mrs. Patel. She winked. Anytime. For the next few days, I ignored every single one of Alex's attempts to contact me. The text started almost immediately after he landed in Costa Rica. Alex, hey, just got here. Hope you're okay. I didn't respond. A few hours later. Alex, I know you're mad. I get it. But can we please talk when I get back? Still nothing. Then came the calls. I let them all go to voicemail. I refused to give him the satisfaction of knowing I was even reading his messages. But the real turning point came when I got a text from an unknown number. Unknown, hey. It's Travis. My stomach flipped. I hesitated for a moment before responding. Me, how did you get my number? Travis. Jenna left her phone unlocked. Don't worry, I didn't do anything shady. Just saw your name and figured I should warn you about something. I frowned. Me, warn me about what? Travis. Alex isn't here to support Jenna. They booked a honeymoon suite. I felt my entire body go cold. Me, what? Travis, yeah. She bragged about it to her friend over the phone. I heard the whole thing. I clenched my jaw so hard it hurt. Me, are you sure? Travis. 100%. I stared at the message for a long time. And then, without even thinking, I started typing. The letter took me hours to write. Not because I didn't know what to say, but because there was so much to say. By the time I was done, my hands were sore from gripping the pen so hard, and my head was pounding from the effort of trying to put my feelings into words. But finally, it was finished. I folded it neatly, placed it in an envelope, and left it with Mrs. Patel, along with strict instructions to give it to Alex when he came for his things. I didn't need to be there. I didn't need to see his face when he read it. I had already wasted enough of my time on him. Alex, I hope Costa Rica is everything you wanted. I hope you and Jenna enjoy your honeymoon suite. Yes, I know about that. Don't bother trying to deny it. For a long time, I let myself believe that I wasn't enough for you. That if I just tried harder, if I just waited longer, you'd finally see me the way I saw you. But I realize now that it was never about me. You never forgot about my feelings. You just didn't care. So this is me making it easy for you. You don't have to choose between us anymore. Because I'm done. Your things are with my neighbor. Don't knock on my door. Don't text me. Don't call. I won't answer. Goodbye. My name. And just like that, it was over. I didn't need closure. I didn't need an apology. I was finally free. Alex didn't take the hint. I had ignored his messages, refused his calls, and left him a letter spelling out, in no uncertain terms, that we were over. But somehow, he still thought there was something left to salvage. The first time he showed up at my apartment, I didn't even answer the door. I watched from the peephole as he knocked, then knocked again, shifting from foot to foot like a guilty child caught in a lie. After a few minutes, he sighed and left. The second time I wasn't home. Mrs. Patel texted me later, saying he had picked up his suitcase but asked about me. I told him you weren't interested, dear. He didn't look happy, but that's not your problem anymore. I thought that was the end of it. But then, on a miserable rain-soaked Tuesday evening, I opened my door to find Alex standing there, drenched and desperate. Can we please talk? I sighed. Alex, please. I considered slamming the door in his face. But something in me, maybe curiosity, maybe just exhaustion, made me step aside. He walked in, dripping water onto my floor, and I realized with a jolt that he looked terrible. His normally styled hair was a mess, his clothes wrinkled like he hadn't bothered changing out of them in days. His eyes were red-rimmed, tired. A twisted part of me felt satisfaction at that. Good. Let him feel miserable for once. I crossed my arms. Say what you came to say. He swallowed hard. I'm sorry. I stared at him. For what, exactly? For everything, he said quickly. For going on that trip. For not seeing how much it hurt you. He ran a hand through his wet hair. For making you feel like you didn't matter. I exhaled slowly, forcing myself to stay calm. You did make me feel like I didn't matter, Alex. Over and over again. He winced. I know. But I never meant to. I swear. I let out a bitter laugh. That's the problem. You think just because you didn't mean to hurt me, it doesn't count. But it does, Alex. Intent doesn't change the outcome. He rubbed his face, his breath shaky. God, I don't know how everything got so messed up. I tilted my head. Do you really not know? Or do you just not want to admit it? He opened his mouth, hesitated. I know I should have handled things differently. I should have. You should have put me first, I said bluntly. At least once. Silence stretched between us. When he finally spoke, his voice was soft, almost pleading. I still love you. I clenched my jaw. Alex. I do, he insisted. And I know I screwed up. But can't we just fix this? I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Fix what, Alex? The fact that I had to beg you to respect me? The fact that I spent our entire relationship wondering if I was just a placeholder until you realized you wanted her instead? His eyes flashed with frustration. It was never about Jenna like that. Then what was it about? He inhaled sharply, as if he hadn't expected the question. I don't know. I shook my head. That's not good enough. He looked genuinely lost now, like he couldn't understand why I wasn't leaping at the chance to forgive him. Why are you acting like this is the end? Because it is the end. His breath hitched. But I held up a hand. No, Alex. Just listen for once. He closed his mouth. I took a deep breath, steadying myself. Relationships are built on trust and mutual respect. We don't have that. We never did. His brows furrowed. That's not true. I lifted my chin. Isn't it? If you respected me, you wouldn't have dismissed my feelings every time Jenna was involved. If you trusted me, you wouldn't have kept things from me until I found out on my own. His hands curled into fists. I didn't keep things from you. You didn't tell me about the honeymoon suite. His face drained of color. I nodded. Yeah. Travis told me. He looked away, guilt written all over him. It wasn't like that. It doesn't matter how you think it was. It matters how it was. He exhaled harshly, shaking his head. So that's it? You're just throwing everything away. I felt a flicker of anger at that, as if I was the one throwing this away. I spent this entire relationship fighting for a place in your life, I said quietly. And I'm done fighting. His expression crumpled. I don't want to lose you. I smiled sadly. You already did. He stared at me like he was trying to come up with something, anything that would make me change my mind. But there was nothing left to say. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, he nodded stiffly. Okay. I swallowed the lump in my throat. Goodbye, Alex. He hesitated, like he wanted to argue, then just sighed. Goodbye. And then he left. That night, I expected to cry. I expected to curl up in bed, grieving for everything we had been, everything we could have been, but I didn't. Instead, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Relief. I had spent so long trying to convince myself that Alex was worth the pain, that if I just held on a little longer, things would get better. But love shouldn't be something you have to convince yourself of. It should be something you feel effortlessly in your bones. And I didn't feel it anymore. I was finally free.